un projet de loi arrive au Parlement, à ce moment, on dit, ah yo, artistes existaient dans ce pays-là. Hein? Allons causer un coup avec eux et voir ce qu'ils en pensent. Non, Monsieur le Président, nous rencontrons les personnes de tous les secteurs de la population et nous sommes en contact avec eux le plus souvent possible. Moi, personnellement, d'autres membres aussi, à travers mon ministère, hein, où nous sommes en train de promouvoir les métiers de l'art au niveau des jeunes. Donc, nous sommes en contact très souvent avec les artistes. Et nous avons reçu un accueil extraordinaire, ce qu'il s'agit de ce projet de loi qui vise à donner un cadre, qui vise à aider nos amis les artistes à être reconnus socialement et qu'ils puissent aussi plus tard avancer économiquement dans leur vie de tous les jours. Monsieur le Président, le ministre a expliqué toutes les étapes avant d'arriver à ce projet de loi ici, avant que ce projet de loi ne soit débattu ici. Il a très très bien expliqué toutes les étapes et je ne compte pas revenir dessus, c'était clair. Et puis, bon, beaucoup de membres de l'opposition disent « Ah, on attendait 4 ans, 10 ans... » Excusez-moi, Monsieur le Président, la préparation d'un projet de loi, pas Tibadia, c'est de fait oui, ça. Hein? Et ça prend le temps qu'il faut et parce qu'il faut le faire bien aussi et il y a des procédures qu'il faut respecter. Évidemment, ça va prendre le temps qu'il faut. Mais, ceci dit, nous ne sommes pas en train de faire un amendement à une loi déjà existante, là, hein, c'est tout nouveau. Hein, donc, ce n'est pas un amendement, ce n'est pas une loi qui a déjà existé, que notre parti au pouvoir avait déjà dans le passé travaillé dessus. C'est la première fois. C'est un projet de loi historique, Monsieur le Président. Et je dois dire merci à notre Premier ministre et à tous les membres, tous les collègues ministres et députés de ce côté de la Chambre de soutenir ce projet de loi et de venir de l'avant et de donner tout le coup de main qu'il faut à notre collègue, le ministre des Arts et du Patrimoine culturel. Et en passant, j'ai noté rapidement la dernière fois, bon, je ne vois pas l'honorable Nagalingam, petit conseil, il est bien plus allons dire, expériencé dans le monde de la politique que moi. Petit conseil, la prochaine fois qu'on lui donne peut-être quelque chose à lire, il faudrait mieux de repasser dessus d'abord. Et le ministre, son ministère, it's not the Ministry of Culture and Cultural Heritage, c'est pas le ministre de la Culture et du patrimoine culturel, c'est pas ça. Il a dit cela dans son discours, c'était écrit par là, bon, je sais pas qui l'a aidé à écrire son discours, il a dit ça plusieurs fois, c'est le ministre des Arts et du Patrimoine culturel, et non le ministre de la Culture et du Patrimoine culturel. Donc, il faut faire attention dans ce qu'on dit, ne pas venir ici au Parlement, juste opposer pour opposer, et lire n'importe quoi. Hein. Donc, Monsieur le Président, le leader de l'opposition paraissait, pendant son discours, très enthousiaste, rempli d'énergie et très en train allons dire, d'être triste pour les artistes parce que d'après lui, il n'y a rien n'a été fait. Certes, c'est pas un monde idéal, il y a beaucoup de progrès à faire. Ben, seulement, je rappelle au leader de l'opposition, j'espère que l'honorable Lobin qui est là lui passerait le message. Ben, écoutez, il a été Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Il a été Deputy Prime Minister. Il a été à plusieurs reprises Acting Prime Minister. Il a été ministre du Tourisme. Donc, depuis un bon bout de temps, il a été présent dans un cabinet ministériel. Ben, il a laissé la situation perdurer. C'est ça le résultat du PMSD? Je pense que c'est le 0 du PMSD. Je sais pas. Donc, Monsieur le Président, il a été ministre du Tourisme et il a parlé, il avait dit que à l'époque, il aurait aimé avoir une National Dance Troupe qui aurait pu l'accompagner dans ses missions. Et Dieu sait combien de missions qu'il avait fait à l'époque. L'accompagner dans ses missions pour montrer partout la valeur de nos danseurs très typiques mauriciens, etc. Mais qu'est-ce qui l'a empêché de faire ce National Dance Troupe alors qu'il était ministre du Tourisme, ministre des Finances et ainsi de suite? C'est trop facile, Monsieur le Président. C'est trop facile de venir ici, de généraliser, de dire, opposer, il fallait faire ça, il faut faire ci, il faut faire ça, quand nous-mêmes, on a été dans une certaine position. Non, c'est trop facile et il faut arrêter cela. Il faut que la population puisse comprendre cela, Monsieur le Président, que ceux qui sont en train de travailler dans leurs intérêts et ceux qui ont à cœur les artistes dont nous parlons aujourd'hui, c'est nous, c'est notre gouvernement, notre Premier ministre, notre ministre des Arts et du Patrimoine culturel. J'ai aussi pris la peine, et coïncidence, aujourd'hui, le ministre Bola a parlé du fameux film Rebate Scheme en 2013, il me semble. J'ai aussi pris la peine d'aller download. Vous savez, ce unit qui s'appelle Hansard, c'est formidable ça, hein? C'est extraordinaire. Il y a tout dedans. C'est pour ça qu'il nous faut toujours faire attention à ce qu'on dit, hein, parce qu'on a tendance à oublier ce qu'on est en train de dire. Alors, j'ai été télécharger le budget speech of Honorable Xavier Luc Duval, Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Finance and Economic Development, novembre 2011. Et il a donné beaucoup d'idées qu'il fallait construire des amphithéâtres dans chaque local authority, etc. Beaucoup de suggestions. Alors, j'ai imprimé la page 8 jusqu'à la page 46, jusqu'à ce qu'il dit, Mr. Speaker, sir, je cite, Monsieur le Président, Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that, etc., now be adjourned. Donc, 46, comme la fameuse chanson de notre ami Alain Ramanissom, me tourner, mais rien qui vaille. Qu'est-ce qu'il y avait dans le budget de 2011 pour les artistes et pour l'art de ce pays? Alors, j'ai passé un petit highlighter, point 166, je cite, Mr. Speaker, sir, government is also introducing the legal framework to encourage the setting up of a film industry to attract international film producers of repute. Et puis il parle des 25%, et puis il parle que j'espère que ce film industry va apporter, etc. Ça même tout. Ça même tout dans un budget, ça même tout pour l'art. Ça même tout pour les artistes d'un budget, et aujourd'hui, cette même personne ose venir nous donner des leçons, comme si nous n'avons rien fait, que comme si ce bill que nous apportons n'a pas son importance. Et idem, Monsieur le Président, bon, le temps file, je n'aurai pas assez de temps pour tourner encore. Donc, j'inviterai les personnes à aller lire le budget, le discours du budget de l'honorable leader de l'opposition, 2012-2013, rien pour l'art et pour les artistes. Et aujourd'hui, quand le ministre des Finances a annoncé plusieurs mesures pour les artistes, pour l'art, c'est quoi? Confetti. Confetti, Monsieur le Président. Là-bas, c'était même pas confetti, c'était confetti invisible. D'où le titre de l'épisode, des épisodes que nous allons faire bientôt, c'est L'homme invisible. Monsieur le Président, j'ai été très touché par la demande de l'honorable Oyane Navarre, Marie, qui a rendu hommage à Roger Augustin, très grand chanteur, qui a fait des merveilles et qui a parlé que cette personne aurait fallu qu'il reçoive un recognition, il me semble, c'est ça que l'honorable membre avait dit, et que c'était son voisin, etc. Mais longtemps, oui. Donc, permettez-moi de rappeler à l'honorable membre qu'elle-même, elle avait été ministre dans un gouvernement, je crois en 2000 et 2005. Son leader était Premier ministre du pays. Il aurait fallu peut-être penser à son voisin à cette époque-là. Pas connu dans l'opposition, qui nous pense nous voisins, hein, Monsieur le Président. Et tout ceci pour vous dire, c'est trop facile. Je ne critique pas pour critiquer, mais je dis c'est trop facile. C'est quand on a une position, quand on a la responsabilité de faire quelque chose, Et puis quand on n'a peut-être même pas pensé à le faire, et que quand nous, ici, de ce côté de la Chambre, nous venons avec un travail sérieux pour le faire, et là, on nous fait de la leçon comme si rien n'est fait. Et puis aussi, Monsieur le Président, comme j'ai dit, le explanatory memorandum est très très clair. L'idée ici, quand cette loi sera, quand ce projet de loi deviendra loi, c'est de créer ce Professional in the Arts Council. Et là, il y a quelque chose aussi que j'ai retenu, c'est que beaucoup de nos amis de l'opposition ont à plusieurs reprises dit que dans ce council, il n'y a pas la place de l'artiste dedans. Ils ne voient pas la place de l'artiste dans ce council. Ben, j'ai été choqué sur le coup, parce que j'allais tirer les oreilles de mon collègue pour lui dire, mais qui avait ça? Et là, quand je regarde, Monsieur le Président, alors, objects, function, yes, the board. Part 3, administration and management of the council, the board, page 8. Bien sûr, chairperson, etc. Et puis, les représentants de différents ministères. C'est l'argent du public. Ce board, ce council, après, aura un compte, aura des audited accounts à faire, etc. Donc, les fonctionnaires doivent être dedans. Je ne comprends pas cet acharnement contre nos amis les fonctionnaires. Mais qui va être dans le board? Alors, à part ça, et si je suis en tort, vous m'arrêtez immédiatement, les amis. Monsieur le Président, vous m'interrompez immédiatement. H. A person having a wide experience in the field of visual arts. Mais un artiste qui a une wide experience in visual arts, qui va avoir ça? Moi? L'honorable Riram à côté de moi, qui va avoir cette expérience-là? I. A person having wide experience in the field of literature. Je ne sais pas, moi, que nos amis ici, vous avez commencé à écrire un peu vos livres, etc. Mais qui c'est? C'est certainement quelqu'un qui écrit. Donc, n'est-ce pas un artiste? J, a person having wide experience in the field of music. Bon, on sait qu'il y a certaines personnes qui sont des adeptes du djembé, oui. Bon, pas prendre ça pour la mettre là-dedans, c'est vrai. Hein? On va trouver des professionnels in the field of music. A person having wide experience in the field, et ça c'est extraordinaire, c'est magnifique, c'est vous faire la place au monde moderne, à la jeunesse, in the field of audiovisual and digital media. Yes. Tous les artistes se retrouvent dans la danse, performing arts. Je ne comprends pas pourquoi on doit venir ici et faire croire que les artistes, ce n'est pas votre conseil à vous, ce sera le conseil des politiciens. Ce sera les conseils des amis du pouvoir, comme l'honorable Richard Duval a dit, les princes du jour. Non, Monsieur le Président, les artistes sont dedans et ils vont se retrouver dans ce conseil pour les artistes. Monsieur le Président, le temps file et je vais conclure avec quelques phrases d'une chanson de Kaya. Et avant de conclure avec quelques phrases de Kaya, laissez-moi rappeler à la Chambre et laissez-moi rappeler à la population que l'année prochaine, cela fera 25 ans déjà que Kaya a perdu la vie. Donc c'était en 1999. Et nous savons tous, Monsieur le Président, dans quelles circonstances. Et ce n'est certainement pas le Parti travailliste ou le PMSD ou autres qui vont venir nous dire qu'ils ont de la considération pour les artistes. C'était le Parti travailliste qui était au pouvoir en 1999. Et l'année prochaine, cela va faire 25 ans que Kaya a quitté ce monde, Monsieur le Président. Si met la lumière, je cite, « Ça même si met te montrer moi, ça même si met qui m'a pour passer, ça même si met y a là-bas même, ça même si met qui m'a pour passer, ça même si met dire pour passer, ça même si met la lumière. » Monsieur le Président, si met la lumière de nos artistes, c'est avec l'honorable Pravin Kumar Jagnat. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Honourable Minister.
Speaker. Point of order.
On what point of order?
According to Section 41, according to what the Minister has stated during his discourse, I didn't want to disturb him earlier. I said to myself, let me do it after he has spoken. Mr. Speaker, I would like to raise a point of order under Section 41 of the Standing Orders. The Honourable Toussaint, during his discourse just now, referred extensively to me, whom in the past has referred to him as a clown. No problem with that.
No.
But no, let me continue.
Wait. Wait. When I am on my feet, you should wait. I should not wait for you. It looks like this is a point of explanation. You want to explain something. No, but you ask a point of order. Yes, point of order is point of order. Ask your lawyer is there. Lawyer, please help him.
No, we've discussed. It's point of order.
On a point of order, you have to say which section and which offense.
I said 41.1.
Yeah, what is the offense?
The offense he has casted aspersions towards my person. He said that as a clown, he is proud not to have allocated housing units to minors, therefore alluding to me when I was managing director of the NSGC. This is not true. I'm turning to you to ask the minister to withdraw this.
Where's the offense in that?
Where is the offense?
It's rebutting. You don't know what is the difference between rebutting and an offense? I rule there is no offense. So, Minister, you start your speech. I have already ruled.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mind your language. You apologize saying I am wrong, you apologize or you withdraw from the chamber.
I want to understand from you he's reporting to what?
I am asking you, you apologize for that bit saying I am wrong.
He said something to me.
I am asking, the last time I'm asking you, or you walk out. Will you withdraw the word I am wrong?
Okay, I
apologize for that.
I apologize.
Thank you.
But I want you to ask him to remove this.
I have no debate to entertain. Minister, you start your speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
No. Now, I am naming you. I'm naming you. Please withdraw from the chamber. Southern Gatons. Ladies and gentlemen. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Monsieur le Président, d'emblée, je remercie les membres de cette Chambre qui ont activement pris part au débat sur ce projet de loi. Particularly members of this side, but also members on the other side. Despite certain contentions,
you are obstructing the House. Don't obstruct the House. Continue. This is the third time I'm asking the Minister to continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Je veux reprendre, Monsieur le Président. Je remercie d'emblée les membres de cette Assemblée qui ont activement pris part au débat sur ce projet de loi. Particularly members from this side, but also members on the other side of the House. And I have the impression that despite certain contentions expressed by members of the opposition, there is a general consensus on the fact that today we need to legislate and introduce a legal framework to protect and consolidate the artistic and creative sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, henceforth, there will be the pre-status of artist period and a post-status of artist period. Henceforth, there will be a period where, despite having spent a whole life at the service of art, a whole life creating, singing, painting, writing, despite being respected, being admired for their talent and work, despite having recognition nationally, internationally, artists have very often been deprived of the basics in terms of their rights to a decent treatment. For instance, when it comes to performing in hotels, when applying for a loan as an artist, when trying to set up a studio or grow in the artistic field, at times, maybe we undervalue the importance of art. At times, maybe we fail to acknowledge the contribution of artists in the socio-economic growth of a country, in its history, in its political development. Mr. Speaker, sir, artists have been present at every major crossroad in the history of our country. The very essence of our identity as Mauritian, the very essence of that fraternity, that patriotic belonging we all share, peu importe our religious belief, our age, our political allegiance, our social background or economic status, peu importe nos différences, there is this one thing that unites us all as daughters and sons of this republic, our national anthem. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it needed an artist to write the lyrics of the national anthem. It needed an artist to write the notes to the tune of our motherland. The Duntulame Promulame of the Gowrie brothers. This song, Mr. Speaker, sir, was written and sung at a time when our country was going through one of these darkest times because of racial tensions and communal conflict. A song which helped in reconsolidating our unity. It helped in rebuilding our country as one nation, en invitant les Mauriciens à Duntulame, Promulame et à nous bâtir une nation mauricienne. This is what art and artists have the capacity to do, Mr. Speaker, sir. And Honorable Buddha, he talked about Duntulame Promulame. But it is not enough, Mr. Speaker, sir, just to reproduce the song pour le 50e anniversaire de l'indépendance. That is not enough, just to reproduce the song. We are all happy the song was chosen. But what about the artist? What about Mr. Gowrie? We celebrate the song, but we forget about the artist. C'est ça la philosophie de Monsieur Culture de Honorable Buddha. We, on the other side, à l'occasion des 55 ans d'anniversaire de l'indépendance de la République de Maurice, nous avons récompensé financièrement M. Gowrie, ainsi que M. Jean-Georges Prosper pour leur contribution à renforcer l'unité nationale dans notre pays. We celebrate artists. Les années 70 et 80, Mr. Speaker, sir, an era when MMM emerged, when new political ideologies were enunciated, which eventually led to a 60. And these new political ideologies, the plight of the population at that time, the social difficulties of people were facing, et qui sont ceux qui ont grandement aidé et contribué à faire véhiculer ces idéologies, à faire disséminer les cris de la population face à la misère noire de l'époque. Autre que les leaders politiques, bien sûr, c'était le légendaire Soleil Rouge, avec Bam Koutayen, Micheline Virasomi, Rose Nelson, Alan Ganou, Nitish Dogana, Ram Jogana. C'était le groupe Latanier. C'était Siven Chinyen. Ces chanteurs, ces artistes ont, par le biais de leurs ségas engagés, permis au MMM de l'époque de parler à la population et de créer cette liesse populaire pour un renouveau politique. Maybe the 60 of 1982 wouldn't have been a 60 avec cette même ferveur sans les ségas engagés. But what happened afterwards? Comment ces artistes ont été traités? What was the consideration given to them? Ces chansons font partie de notre patrimoine culturel aujourd'hui. Ces ségas engagés, c'est notre patrimoine national. And again, Mr. Speaker, sir, we celebrate art, we celebrate artists. We don't ride on the shoulder of artists at a certain period of time rise to power and forget them. Et raison pour laquelle le ministère des Arts et du Patrimoine culturel aujourd'hui travaille sur la possibilité, selon les dispositions du National Heritage Fund Act, de classer certaines chansons locales comme patrimoine national. Des titres comme Crapaud crié, Papidou de Tifrère, Mon capitaine de Michel Legris, Montagne Berthaud de Ganou, Eugène, Madame Eugène de Serge Lebras, L'Alcatirenya de Sonanoyan, Langaro de Bhojpuri Boys, Le Monde de Cassia, ou même Simer la Lumière, comme l'a si bien chanté l'honorable Toussaint de Kaya. Et l'honorable Toussaint a fait mention, en parlant de Kaya, feu Joseph Réginald Topise, celui qui, à travers sa musique, cherchait à montrer aux gens Simer la Lumière. Le Parti travailliste se souviendra certainement comment ce légendaire artiste a été traité et les incidents malheureux qui ont coûté la vie à ce fils du sol. Et surtout les émeutes qui se sont suivies, durant lesquelles le chanteur berger Agathe a également perdu la vie. Un gouvernement sensible à la culture valorise les artistes, Monsieur le Président. Un gouvernement cultivé respecte la mémoire des artistes. Et c'est pour cela que le gouvernement de l'honorable Pravin Jagnnath, par respect pour la mémoire des artistes, de cet artiste, de Kaya, a décrété le 21 février le Ségédé, en mémoire du feu Kaya. De même pour Sonanoyan en décrétant le 8 février le Bhojpuri Gamadé. Et tout récemment, le 6 avril en mémoire de Serge Lebras, le Ségadé. Un gouvernement sensible à la culture valorise les artistes. L'artiste peintre Vako Bessak, décédé le 5 février de cette année, à l'âge de 82 ans, a été élevé au rang de GCSK à titre posthume. Mr. Speaker, sir, in this pre-status of artist period, artists do not benefit from any form of pension or other facilities or benefits as artists. They are not recognized as artists, save for registration done at the level of Maza. The registration at the level of Maza is to protect their right as authors. It's a very different framework, it's a very different scheme. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a fundamental step towards curing these issues. And the cure is to recognize who is an artist. And most importantly, who is a professional artist. And this distinction is crucial, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have, on the one side, someone who, as a passe-temps, as a hobby, sings, he paints, he writes. And on the other side, we have someone who performs for a living, someone who lives by his talent or her talent, someone who is a professional in the sector, someone whose source of revenue, very important distinction, someone whose source of revenue is through his or her art. And this bill speaks for these people, because we need to cater for them. Very jokingly, Honorable Navarmari stated that Honorable Jagatpal is not on the orators list. But that comment in itself explains her understanding of this bill. That comment itself explains that, unfortunately, she hasn't grasped the very essence of what we're debating today. We are here putting in place a legal framework to identify and ensure that those who are professionals in the sector, those whose source of revenue is art, are able to evolve in a regulated sector and enhance their social, and economic status as professional in the arts. And this is what the Professional in the Arts Council will do, provide a status to these artists. It took time. Of course, it took some time. As Honorable Toussaint said it, we are not amending a law. We are building from scratch. We had to seek the collaboration and assistance of UNESCO. It was a tedious exercise because this is new, not just for Mauritius. For the whole world, it's a new legal framework. Very few countries have implemented or introduced or adopted a status of artist regulation or act. Very few countries, a handful. And today, Mauritius is joining this league of very few countries who had the courage and the audacity to come forward with the status of an artist bill to regulate this sector. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, sir, to provide a conducive framework to develop artistic and cultural talents, my ministry has put various schemes, such as purchase of book schemes. As I said last time, we took time, but there are schemes that were put in place to ensure that there is this assistance, and we keep on growing the sector. Comme on dit, labourer le terrain en attendant l'introduction de ce texte de loi. This is what we did. National Arts Fund, for instance, announced by the Prime Minister, who was also at that time in 2017 Ministre des Finances, announcing the introduction of a National Arts Fund that would allow the ministry, through that fund, to provide assistance, financial assistance to various categories of artists. 22 projects have already been approved. And when I say 22 projects, Mr. Speaker, sir, we're not talking about simple one-off schemes or assistance. We're talking about grants going up to 800,000 rupees per project. Until now, we have dished out nearly 50 millions de roupies sous ce fonds. On a labouré le terrain. We have started preparing, setting the base until the introduction of this bill. On a parlé ce matin lors du PNQ du cinéma. Many members referred to artists, and unfortunately we have limited ourselves to musical artists. But, Mr. Speaker, so we also have other disciplines. We talked about cinema, le cinéma local aujourd'hui. Our movies produced locally sont primés à l'international, au Festival de Cannes, various other festivals in India, in USA, in Europe. Our local products in terms of cinema is being exported and being recognized abroad. Aujourd'hui, on a environ 101 local filmmakers involving around 1,000 artists, technicians benefiting from financial assistance on the Financial Film Assistance Scheme. Et également pour les écrivains. L'honorable Bouddha pointed out that famous writers who shown internationally. But moi, I would like to remind Honorable Bouddha that we are actually at the level of the ministry. We have introduced various schemes, purchase of books, assisting authors, local authors, to do their launching. There are several, as I said, on a jeté les bases until the introduction of this bill. Visual artists, le Mauritius Arts Expo, regroupant 100 artistes peintres, récemment au Citadelle au mois de juin. And I'm not going to repeat myself what we did during COVID, because COVID is not an exception in terms of your deliverables, but COVID was an opportunity for those who wanted to do things. COVID was an opportunity for those who wanted to develop differently their sector, their respective sectors. The agro sector did. their part. Social Security did their part. SMEs did their part. Of course, let's not forget the contribution of the health sector. Each and everyone, tourism sector. Everyone tried to devise and find means and ways to ensure that there is a new way of running their respective sector. We did the same thing. COVID is not an excuse. It's a perfect opportunity for those who want to do something, those who want to be proactive. We have been proactive at the level of the ministry. We have introduced various schemes, various plans, COVID action plan, post-COVID support scheme, helping thousands of artists, dishing out hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rupees, millions of rupees, just with one objective: to be able to support the sector, but also allowing them to go digital, for instance, rethinking the way they work, rethinking the way they exhibit their talent. Et l'honorable leader de l'opposition, for him, we should not be introducing the bill. For him, we should not be recognizing the status. We should rather, actually, go grassroots and find talent in every Mauritian. Fair enough. Okay, I'll go by what he says. But before he comes to the house and gives long lectures on what we should be doing for our artists, I would like to tell him that we have already done that. During COVID, we have already done that with Maurice Noukiltier nous Talents. We introduced actually a scheme where we were inviting new talents to come forward, being paid out a support, and at the same time discovering what we have at grassroots level. Artist Incubator Scheme, announced last year, introduced this year, with new 11 budding artists who want to emerge in this sector. Before he says it, we have done it already. Même pas Pégoré. Actually, he's very unaware. Honorable Toussaint said it. We do not occasionally, for the purpose of a bill, meet artists. This is our day-to-day business. Meeting artists, talking to them, collecting information from them, seeking their support, trying to improve our service, trying to improve our deliverables, trying to improve what we offer them. We do it on a daily basis, and this allows us to go grassroots, as he suggested, une suggestion périmée, allons dire. He also, Mr. Speaker, sir, may I be allowed to have a glass of water, please? He also mentioned, Honorable Toussaint also raised that point. Honorable leader of the opposition was talking about national dance troupe. He wanted to be accompanied by a national dance troupe abroad, everywhere. Unaware is that we have already appointed a board and set up the National Troupe of Mauritius. We already have this National Troupe of Mauritius. They are sitting for their first board meeting in the coming days, and they will start working on what we call a national troupe that will go around the world and reproduce what we have culturally in our country, but also ensure that we have a national troupe performing for art, for tourists, for example, coming to Mauritius. So this is something, again, unaware to him, has already been done. So that's already half of his speech, which is entirely irrelevant in terms of what we have been debating. And again, Honorable Toussaint, I think Honorable Toussaint went through my speech before coming here. Honorable Toussaint said it very rightly, very rightly. Honorable Leader of the Opposition was Minister of Tourism. He was Vice Prime Minister. He was Deputy Prime Minister, Finance Minister, Acting Prime Minister. And not just for a year or two, but for 2 consecutive mandates. He had the opportunity to do so many things, especially when he referred to the tourism sector. He even said that artists are not treated properly, they don't have the right, they don't get the benefits, there are people exploiting them. But actually nothing was done at that time. It was very simple, Mr. Speaker, sir. As Minister of Tourism, he could have sorted the issue. That fell under his ambit. That fell under the purview of his ministry to call les hôteliers and find a solution to that. The other half of his speech on this matter is an aveu d'échec, an aveu that he did not do anything for a very important segment of the population who are artists, when he had the capacity, the ability, the potential, he had all the means and arms to do something for them. He did absolutely nothing. He is talking about we're taking time to bring this bill. Le rapport Justice et Vérité, Commission Justice et Vérité, recommended, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we set up a musée intercontinental de l'esclavage. Nothing was done. Talking about taking time to bring this bill. Musée intercontinental de l'esclavage, committees were set up, discussions were held. They were even thinking of delocating the musée, were initially proposed by la Commission, to another location. But it needed leadership. C'est bien de faire des discours, eloquently coming here, raising issues, but it needs leadership to implement recommendations. And the Prime Minister done that. Dans pas longtemps, Monsieur le Président, dans pas longtemps, nous allons vers l'ouverture officielle du musée, permettant aux Mauriciens de venir revivre l'histoire noire de notre pays, à Port-Louis, à l'hôpital ex-militaire. L'ex-hôpital militaire. Same for Bassin des Esclaves. Part of the recommendation, non, rien va faire. Very recently, the cabinet approved the listing of les Bassins des Esclaves, uplifting the memory of our ancestors. Not only that, we went further. On a également listé le marché des esclaves, which is situated next to le Bassin des Esclaves. We didn't take time. We do things one at a time, but we do it properly. And this is very important. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm not going to repeat what others have already said, but there is this comment about mainmise sur la nomination, the usual rhetoric. All bills coming to this House and all new councils or commissions or boards being set up under these proposed laws, we hear the same thing, especially from members of MMM, petits copains, petites copines, appointment, mainmise. But again, you said it very right. The law is very clear. Firstly, there is this equal allocation of representation. Artists and ex officio members. Ministries, representative. It's very important. Fonctionnaires. I think they're allergic avec les fonctionnaires. Last time, la virulence avec lesquelles they attacked the officers of the Ministry of Health while we were debating the Central Medical Procurement Authority Bill. La virulence, cette haine contre les fonctionnaires. Les fonctionnaires, they are the soul of administration. Without them, the country we won't be able to run this country. We need them on our boards. We need them for proper administration. But of course, when we're talking about a council dealing with the artistic sector, there is this representation from the artistic sector, from the creative sector, and this is very clear in the law. Each and every discipline, each and every sector is duly represented. There is no mainmise. Even if I want to appoint Honorable Bobby Ayiram, I will never be able to. I will never be able to, because I need someone with vast experience in that particular discipline, which is very clear in the law. Il n'y a pas de mainmise, il n'y a pas de petit copain, il n'y a pas de petit copine, and this actually is not the practice of the government. This might have been the practice way before. Way before it might have the practice. And besides the board, we have 6 sectoral expert committees. And these 6 expert sectoral committees will be exclusively run by artists. There won't actually be any administrative personnel of any ministry sitting on those sectoral expert committees. Et je viendrai avec un amendement au comité stage, pour donner davantage de pouvoir, actually, to those 6 expert sectoral committees et permettre à ces sectoral expert committee to advise the board on matters relating to their respective sector, which is very important. So there is this no mainmise or manipulation, whatever they want to call it. We are here, Mr. Speaker, sir, to put in place a new framework that will help with the registration, identification, enhancement of social, economic status of artists. That's the sole objective of this bill. Also, several concerns have been expressed on the state recognition allowance scheme and the pension scheme. The bill provides that an artist will be recognized as a professional in the arts once registered by the council. It is expected that out of the 6,000 artists presently registered with MAZA, and some honorable member on the opposition did highlight that nous avançons les chiffres de 6,000 et le ministre des Finances a avancé le chiffre de 2,000. Actually, there is no confusion. I think we need to hear exactly what is the nature of the debates in this house. 6,000 artistes sont enregistrés au niveau de la MAZA. But not all these 6,000 artists will benefit from pension from day one. La pension, nous sommes éligibles à une pension à la retraite. So it's not like introducing a pension scheme aujourd'hui, outright. I will run with my registration card, okay, pay me by pension. Pension is paid at retirement. So out of the 6,000, we have to see, we have to do our, we have to check who are those who are now eligible, who are those who will reach pension age. Thereon, we will calculate what needs to be paid and how it needs to be paid. Of course, the council will have the responsibility of putting in place that pension scheme. C'est prématuré aujourd'hui de venir nous demander how will the pension work, how will it not work. Le council va faire. Je vais faire calcul tout exactement. And actually, Mr. Speaker, sir, rushing into introducing things. This is costing our artists a lot aujourd'hui. This, at the time of introducing the bill or voting the bill or having the council set up, expecting that the pensions will be paid the very next day, this is very, very, allons dire, dangereux. And I will tell you why, Mr. Speaker, sir. MAZA Artist Solidarity Scheme. A solidarity scheme which exists at the level of MAZA. En 2010, the then government decides, I hope it's in the interest of artists, but it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like. They introduce, through MAZA, they introduce the Maza Artist Solidarity Scheme, and a pension of a minimum of 1,000 rupees and a maximum of 2,500 rupees will be paid, depending on certain conditions, et ils ont travaillé les critères. Cependant, Mr. Speaker, sir, where the money will come from, how will the fund be regenerated? Will be alimenté? Who will be paid out? How long will this fund? So I don't just survive. I will tell you why I say survive. How long will this fund survive? No actuarial exercise were conducted. Nothing. Au pied levé, we announced la mise en place d'un Maza Artist Solidarity Scheme, and we start paying out. Aujourd'hui, valeur du jour, this fund has been depleted completely. Parce qu'on n'a jamais, we have never worked on the survival of the scheme on the long run. They have never no exercise was conducted to see what will happen in 10 years, what will happen in 20 years, what will happen in 30 years. As and when new registration coming, how will we cater for them? Nothing was done. They rushed in, set up the scheme. Aujourd'hui, this fund has been depleted completely. We are having to work out something for the artists. Et les artistes ne sont pas responsables de cela. The artists are not responsible for the state of affairs of Maza. They are those who rushed into putting in schemes just to please certain people or just for certain intent which are beyond genuine intent to work for the artist. Et là, on se retrouve avec un artist solidarity scheme that is not working. So, honorable members, let us not rush. Let us not rush with the pension scheme. It will come. We will sit, we will work on the modalities, we will see the best way to ensure la subsistance de ce fonds. Thereon, we will allocate la pension to those who are eligible. C'est important de comprendre cela. Monsieur le Président. Et same applies to the state recognition allowance. It is to provide a one-off cash grant to the professional in the arts, those registered with the council, of course. Et il y a une différence avec ce qu'on pratique aujourd'hui dans le secteur du sport. Sportsmen, they usually participate in competitions. They win the competition, they come back, and there is this state recognition allowance. It's very different for us. Usually we don't have any competition au niveau international pour les artistes. Having said so, Mr. Speaker, sir, again, the council will need to sit with stakeholders, with people who are concerned, and see what is the best framework to put in place to ensure that there is this state recognition allowance scheme being paid out to certain artists who shall be eligible based on certain conditions. So no rushing. Again, what is more important is that we have a legislation today being introduced in the House. We will have a legislation that will be applicable to artists, and that legislation is already providing for a state recognition allowance scheme. Whether we want it or not, this will come into play at some point in time, but let the council do their part of the job. We do ours. They will, of course, work with stakeholders, which is very important, and see all recommendations and come up with a suitable plan as state recognition allowance. Et we have also heard about duplication. Honorable Navarre-Marie mentioned about the fear that we have two instances, two organizations dealing with artists. But it's important, very important, that we understand what la Maza, c'est quoi la Maza? La Maza, I will read it, la Maza deals with collection and distribution of royalties. When an artist has a work, for instance, a song, that song is played in hotels, it's played on radio, on TV, there is a remuneration that goes back to the artist. How do we collect and how we distribute those rights, those royalties, that revenue collected is through MAZA. MAZA has a very defined responsibility. Nothing to do with what we're creating aujourd'hui. The status of the artist bill, the council being set up under the bill, will have a very different mandate. Et il suffit de lire, il suffit to go through in the explanatory memorandum, il suffit to run through the act to understand that this is une bête très différente de la MAZA. La MAZA deals with copyright, deals with collection and distribution of royalties and ensure protection of copyright also. But this one deals with status. How do we give recognition to our artists? Et c'est ça la grande différence. Il n'y a pas d'application loin de là. Actually, it's actually introducing a framework in a vacuum that was in existence till now. Mr. Speaker, sir, parlant de MAZA, I will remind the House that we know that MAZA is facing a lot of difficulties in terms of administration, in terms of collection and distribution, and something which has been long overdue is a restructuring at the level of the MAZA. And this is a call of the artists. They want to see changes in the way MAZA operates. And we have recently launched an expression of interest, a tender exercise rather, to get a consultant to come and advise us on how to restructure MAZA. Unfortunately, I will need to say that the exercise was unresponsive. We're having to launch it again. But we will definitely need to revisit and review the function of MAZA, because that is also a very important limb when it comes to the creative sector. Dr. Honorable Boulel cited during his speech l'Union des Artistes. I think you meant them, and they did express their concerns. Yeah, by way of a letter. So they did express their concerns on the introduction of this bill, and that it does not align with the recommendation or the report of UNESCO. We need to understand something, Mr. Speaker, sir. We can't just pick up what the content of the report and reproduce it in the bill. We need to ensure that the recommendations tally with our existing legislation. The Status of Artists Bill talks about atypical worker. When we talk about atypical worker, on ne va pas réinventer la roue. What we will do, we already have in our existing legislation, the Workers' Rights Act, provisions for atypical workers regime. Alors, ce qu'on fait, c'est d'accorder les recommandations de l'UNESCO, des consultants de l'UNESCO, with existing legislation. As simple as that. We won't create a regime within a regime. We can't have atypical worker under Workers' Rights Act that caters for all atypical workers in Mauritius, subject to the definition set out in the law, and have an atypical worker, especially for the creative sector. So, on ne peut pas faire ça. That is the reason that there are certain recommendations in the report that had to be readapted, which is logical and which makes sense legally and also in practice when it comes to implementation. And also, it's rather normal that we will have certain adaptations, certain re-editing in terms of what we are reproducing in our bill. Et also, toujours les commentaires de l'honorable Boulel, Dr. Honorable Boulel, the comments made by the Federation of International Musicians. I wish to reiterate that each and every member of the Council, members of the Sectoral Expert Committee, co-opted member, and staff will have specific and crucial roles to play in delivering a seamless service. What do we wish? We do not want to put in place a professional in the Arts Council? Is this what we want? Because quand on lit what the Federation the Federation of International Musicians are proposing is actually not coming forward with a bill, if we go by what they are saying. But don't we want that? Don't we want to cater for the welfare of artists? And there is a starting point. There is a starting point. We have to take the first step. We cannot have, at one go, every consideration being put in the law et d'un seul coup, régler tous les problèmes. We are creating something new. We are introducing something new. So, one step at a time, this is the first step. Of course, all other consideration, all other progress, all the other amendments, modification will come at a later stage, if needs be, of course, Mr. Speaker, sir. And on l'a dit, we have had a lot of consultations, so won't come back on that as well. But I will, there is a last point maybe, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to raise before I conclude, is, let me just quickly run through. Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Some members have also raised the concern that there were representation by artists. Ils ont fait des représentations that we have not taken into account. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the consultations have been ongoing since 2017. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Very recently, I had a workshop with artists in 2022. Il y a des unions des artistes aujourd'hui that have been recently set up. Consultations date back to 2017. So if there is a new union that has been created now, of course, it's difficult for us to find their recommendations in the report of the UNESCO. It's impossible to find their the suggestions, their proposals in the report. Alors, ce qu'on va faire, maybe at a later stage, let us not forget that regulations découlent des actes. If we need to introduce things, if we need to improve certain measures, we will of course consider. My door is always open for artists. I met someone, of course I won't give the name, I met someone yesterday morning, I'm meeting another group on Monday. This is, as I said, usual business, and nous sommes toujours à l'écoute. So, ceux qui viennent nous dire que nous n'avons pas pris en considération leurs recommandations, not correct at all. They have to revise their copy because they were recently incorporated, which is very, very natural that their recommendation will not be found in the UNESCO report. Mr. Speaker, sir, as mentioned during my second reading, when it comes to Rodrigues, we will see, of course, the number of applications being received. If it is conséquent, we will, of course, see if an administrative branch of the council be set up in Rodrigues. So that would be to bring comfort to the comment expressed by Honorable François, because we have actually a lot of artists coming from Rodrigues, very good artists come from Rodrigues. Et après la promulgation de cette loi, Monsieur le Président, les artistes ne devront pas ou plus tirer le diable par la queue. J'ai à cœur les intérêts et mon ministère est en train de faire de son mieux pour venir en aide aux artistes et trouver les moyens pour leur permettre de s'épanouir et de vivre de leur talent, including occasional artists. And that will reply to Honorable David's concern when it comes to police band or other people who are already in employment somewhere. There is already provision in the law that caters for them. There is this category of occasional artists, et cette catégorie va repêcher those who are already in employment, and because there is a distinction. When we're talking about professional in the arts, or professional artists, for instance, there is this last condition. Whose profession, as a professional artist, is his primary occupation? Alors, si quelqu'un pratique l'art d'une manière professionnelle, but is not someone who relies on his art and is not his primary occupation or source of income, il va basculer sous occasional artist, occasional professional in the arts. Ce qui va repêcher, comme je dis, all those who already have a primary occupation autre que l'art. Les portes, Monsieur le Président, de l'avenir sont ouvertes à ceux qui savent les pousser, et je suis confiant que ce projet de loi apportera un nouveau souffle à tous ceux qui sont concernés. This government, under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, l'Honorable Pravin Kumar Jagnat, who has demonstrated over the years, whether he was Minister of Finance, with the introduction, as I spelled out earlier, the National Arts Fund, mais également through his Minister of Finance, he has always showed dedication and commitment to help artists. Et l'exemple la plus vivide that I recall is pendant the COVID. And I will end with this, Mr. Speaker, sir, pendant COVID, when we were introducing the self-employed assistance scheme pour les self-employed. Let me remind the House that prior to status of artist legislation, an artist, even if he is self-employed, he will never benefit from a trade license. Never. Cette loi change les donnes. This law is bringing consequential amendment in the Local Government Act, allowing the creation of a new category for classified trade, that is, professional in the arts. Cet artiste enregistré comme self-employed, we're able to not only have a professional in the arts council card, but also be holder of a business registration card that would allow him to run to a bank and to apply for a loan as a self-employed. Mais pour revenir à ce que je disais, during COVID, when the self-employed assistance scheme was being devised, when the list of beneficiaries were being set out, even though no definition of artists existed, even though artists were not classified as self-employed, even though we could not clearly, legally identify artists, the Prime Minister insisted that out of the list of beneficiaries, it be expressly stated that artists will benefit from the self-employed assistance scheme as any other self-employed. This is the commitment. These are tangible examples. We don't need lengthy speeches to show that. We show it by action. And you can run a whole calendar of actions that have been taken over the years under the Prime Ministership of Pravin Kumar Jagnat to help artists, to help the creative sector, to help the cultural sector. I thank the officers of my ministry who have worked on this bill. I thank the officers of the Attorney General's office who have also collaborated very closely into drafting this marvelous and historic piece of legislation. I thank all my honorable colleagues who have contributed in the debates and helped disseminate the uniqueness and importance of this bill to the creative sector. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for your attention. Thank you.
Do you commend the bill? Of course. Anybody seconding? The question is that the status of the Artist Bill number 7 of 2023 be read the second time. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it. Honourable members, I'll suspend the sitting for 30 minutes.